Hey, thanks for being a part of the conversation. Let's do some pod crashing. Episode number 223 is with comedian Ophira Eisenberg from the podcast Parenting is a Joke. Congratulations on your podcast. I wish that my mother would have had, the opportunity to hear a podcast like this, because you really do, look at being a parent through different eyes than most people.
Well, I feel like the conversation, thank you. And I feel like the conversation is generally changing as we are allowing, both fathers and mothers to be vulnerable and honest about their experience in a way that is, not at all feeling like a problem. Like we're allowed to be like, hey, guess what? This is hard and I'm not perfect. How do you do it? How are we going to do this?
No.
I think that conversation makes us all feel less alone.
I'll tell you one thing that I've seen a lot lately is fathers and their kids at grocery stores. And my dad would have never walked into a grocery store. And so when I see that kind of stuff, I just think it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. There is a guy involved in this family. That's neat. All right. What else is going on in your life?
Yeah, exactly. I also came from a very traditional, in that way, kind of family where my mother sort of did all the child care, domestic stuff, and my father would work and then come home at night and we would have dinner together. It was pretty traditional, but I don't live that life. And I am talking to a lot of other people in the creative field who also don't live that life, mainly because their life choices, even with their job, are totally different and outside of the 9 to 5 range. And I think that is that's just the way we live now. And fathers are completely involved in everything. I go to the park on Sunday. It is all, it's hilarious. It's all fathers with their kids. And I always want to take a photo and send it to, my older brothers and sisters and just go, this is not how we grew up. Totally different. Yeah.
So true, though. I mean, it was a typical household where, dad would go to work in the morning, mom would stay home. And then when dad would get home, then it was family time. These days, so many people are putting their careers first. I'll tell you the type of parent I am now. I built my whole entire life around my dog. And my dog is king.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that amazing when it's you're out for cocktails with friends and it's 9 p.m. and you're like, I got to go home and walk the dog.
That's it.
Got to go home and walk the dog. Yeah. Yep. Well, my hours are pretty wild because, I get up at 7 to bring my kid to school. And then I usually work during the day. And then at night, I put on a leather jacket and some makeup and I go out and do shows. So the amount of times my son has said to me at 7 years old, break a leg, Mom, is pretty... So, and I think, I'm not the only one with the night job out there. I just happen to work in stand-up, and there's not a lot of great stand-up shows at 9 a.m. Not yet.
Well, on your podcast, I love the way that you break it down and you talk with other comedians and stuff like that, like Catherine Reitman. You kept it very real with this.
Yeah, well, the good thing is I think when you bring up this subject matter, people are very willing to get real because it is something that is there anything more universal about humanity than what it is like to bring other humans into this world or to raise other humans and interact with other people. And we always look at our own, the way we were raised, just like we were just talking about how we were raised. And if that's a template at all to how we live now, and so much has changed. So people get vulnerable very quickly, which I love.
Well, one of the things that those changes, and maybe you'll have a future podcast on this, I'm amazed at how many of today's parents allow their kids to use bad words. And I'll stand there going, you did not just say that to me. My dad would have backhanded me in a heartbeat.
Yeah. My son recently said to a teacher, oh, you're Mr. Make All the Rules. And, he got in trouble. And he was like, why did I get in trouble? I think that's a funny joke. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be a hard one to explain, this whole respect thing about what's funny and what's not. When does a joke land? But that is not even a language thing. That's just a combination. But yeah, also, but I think that's another, like, language is completely changing because you look at how people talk about their lives through even social media, and we use very different language.
As a parent and on this podcast, how are you dealing with where the mindsets of the young adults are? Because as a parental leader, I've still got to have those conversations about what's happening in Ukraine. We've got this guy in North Korea that won't stop shooting missiles into the sky, and I want to be able to tap into their fear and help them understand that they're not alone.
Yeah, and I think, there's better resources for that now than I feel. I mean, as much as I kind of bash technology at times for making my life hard, where I'm like, get that iPhone out of your hand, it's helpful because there's a lot more guidance out there of how to talk to kids of any age about some of these harder things. And I think, again, I grew up during a lot of unrest in the world as well, but it was not talked about. And I think there's a positive here where we can acknowledge that things are bad. We can talk about hope. We can talk about activism. We can talk about making positive change. And we can talk about how to do that as a family, even if it's on a grassroots level, which I think is much more positive than the way I remember hearing it, which is sort of the television in the background of the living room and getting these snippets and then people saying to me, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Can you teach creativity to kids?
I think every kid is creative. Personally, I think every kid is creative. I think that is all about just let them go. And my kid likes to draw, and I actually posted like, hey, does anyone know of a good drawing class for a 7-year-old? And so many people came back and said, no drawing classes, just let them go. And I thought that was great advice, honestly. Just let them go. I think, we all wanted to dance as kids. I feel I am someone that should not dance like nobody's watching, but when I'm not a great dancer, but I have made myself like kind of lose my self-consciousness and dance with my kid just with any song that we're throwing on, because I love that expression and I want to show him that it's okay for his mom to be goofy and embarrassing. And honestly, I hope to embarrass him forever.
So now, when you're crafting your jokes, are you in a room all by yourself? Because I mean, come on, some of the worst critics are family.
Yeah, I don't really throw my jokes past my 7-year-old. Not yet. He throws a lot of jokes past me, and some of them are pretty good. But so I write. Of course, I write in the small room, and then the only test is actually going out to the audience, and so it's just taking it out on stage and seeing how things fly, and just gauging your crowd through their beers or glasses of wines or whatever night they're having, and figuring out what hits and what they are confused by and what needs to be sharpened. Occasionally I will try something on a friend, and it's always great when they're like, yeah, sure, you can try that. You're like, got it.
I've been blessed with the opportunity to be with Roy Wood Jr. This is a man that is so funny, and he can take you in any direction. How did you get him to find the focus for your podcast on that one? Or was it an easy conversation?
Yeah, no, and that was in person, which was so great because he lives in New York. We've been friends for a while just through the comedy community, and I have interviewed him before on NPR and such. So when I started this, I love his comedy and I love his parenting comedy. So I said, do you have some time? And he graciously was like, yeah, I'm totally in. And it was interesting because we were talking all about, what he's working on, but also, he has a young boy too, the same age, almost the same age as my child. So we were talking about, being present for this young child. And I asked him about how he is trying to figure out his work-life balance, and, which is such a question that moms get asked. And he did say to me, no one's ever asked me that. And he appreciated answering it, because sometimes we forget, as much as we put all this stuff on moms about how are you balancing it all, there's very active other parental people that are also need to shuffle. And him giving voice to that, I think, was really interesting, and also, good. It was revealing. His kid, by the way, gets 2 bags for free on Delta, which makes me jealous.
You talk about that balancing and stuff like that. I mean, I live a Google Calendar life. I mean,
me too.
If there's a box in there that isn't filled, by God, I'm going to figure out a way to fill it up.
Yes. Oh, me too. When I look at what I've showed my calendar to other people and they just look at me like, what are you doing? Yeah, I am such, bucket of time. Bucket of time that someone says you have an hour to do this. Guess what? That's all you have. But my calendar is crazy. I think we all have wild calendars these days, which is, I think why there's so much talk about like, hey, take a breath, everybody.
But you're right, though. The way that and the thing is, though, this is the way that my daughter explained it to me. I did what I did because you guys were never home. And I'm going, oh. So now it's all on me. Okay, so you're not in trouble. It's my fault now.
Oh, my God. How old is your daughter?
Oh, she's 42 now. But
oh, so lucky. So lucky.
So, I mean, I have crazy little 18-year-old grandkids and stuff like that. So
Goodness.
Oh my God! And you spill the guts on what the daughter was like when she was a kid. And you're it's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, I imagine you were both not at home because you were working. You were making it happen.
It was radio. It was being on a live stage. I mean, it was music. It was and it was like, wow. You mean I can do this too, and I can do this too, and so yeah, I've never said no to a live performance.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. And I have, just with a 7-year-old, have been given some grief, I will say, as I'm leaving to go do a show on the regular. And I have said to him, this was actually, I didn't come up with this. I read it and kind of put it together. But I have said to him, I am doing something that I love. This is like a privilege that I have even figured out a way to make something I love a career, and I hope in your life you find something that is my greatest wish for you to find something you love. So see you later.
Is there something that you do that acts as the trigger? And the reason why I bring that up is that the very second that I would see my mother put on that red lipstick, means she was leaving.
That's me too. I mean, I put on makeup kind of at 6 p.m. Seriously. Yeah. And regularly my son will come into the bathroom and he sees me putting on lipstick and I do wear red lipstick also, or putting on mascara. And that's when he says, oh, you have a show tonight? And and we do have a little routine where I live in a apartment building with an elevator. And so he'll walk me to the elevator and he'll press the button and then we do a high five and then he gives me a hug and says, break a leg, Mom, and runs back to our apartment. And that's just what we figured out. And it's slowly becoming normalized, I would say. And I'm lucky to be home when I'm home because I know a lot of professionals in various fields don't even get that much. They're on call because they are literally putting out fires or saving lives.
Yep. Well, I mean, I can't imagine what you guys went through during the pandemic when everything shut down. I'll never forget March 20th or 17th of 2020. And that is everything on my calendar was now canceled.
Scary.
Oh my God. And I hope to never go through that again.
No, I mean, I was worried about, of course, how we were just going to pay for our lives. That was a very real fear, very real. But, I live in a small apartment. I had so many fears, of course, just about the disease in general or the virus in general. And then we live in a pretty small apartment and man, did it become smaller when nobody left. And I started thinking my goal in life is to live in a place big enough to socially distance from my family.
Right. So true. And you're right about that, how it shrunk, the house shrunk, because I have these flashbacks. I did spend a lot more time outside. I had dinner outside. I did it so much outside. It's because I didn't want to be inside.
No. Oh, I mean, I bought New York is I grew up in Canada, so I knew from cold weather wear. But when I moved to New York, it was actually quite much warmer here. So I got rid of all of it. I bought it all again. And I would, a friend would be like, do you want to go for a glass of wine at 8 p.m. February 9th on an outdoor terrace with a tiny heat lamp? And I'd be like, I'm there. And literally I would be in a snowsuit. Sitting on a metal deck chair, of an establishment paying for a $10 Merlot. And I'd be like, this is living.
on your podcast, Parenting is a Joke, which is on iHeartRadio, you speak with Jessi Klein about reaching outside the performance. I think sometimes many creative people don't realize that they are a system of multiple people, and you have to reach out of that performance in order to have a peace in your life.
Yeah, I mean, so that's another thing. There's so many transitions, so many of us go through. And I think, I find it very harsh. And I think she was speaking to that too, where you are a parent and that requires a certain kind of attention and mindset. And then you have to make this quick transition to all of a sudden, you're this kind of independent, creative thinker, or you're on stage and you're being cool and you're there for like this intense entertainment place. And these transitions are quick and you have to do them quickly and be these different people, and what it is like to switch between all of that.
Yep.
And kind of still really like nurture yourself a little bit, because it's intense feeling like you're giving all to one thing and then giving all to the other things.
That's why I call it post-production blues, because it's like, okay, give me a second here. I'm currently in a post-production blues moment. Let me catch my breath again.
Yeah, when scuba divers come up too quickly from deep sea diving and they have to go through a chamber. They sit in a decompression chamber. I want one of those for us. I want a little place where I can just get through my bends before I whisk off to my next thing. Because you need that, yeah.
Oh man, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always be open for you.
Thank you so much. It's great talking to you. I'm literally jealous that your children, I don't know if you have one or more, but at least your daughter is grown up and you have grandkids that age, because I feel like that's got to feel like an accomplishment.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the one of the greatest things about it is that you get to see your children grow up again, except this time it's in slow motion. The first time around, life goes too fast. Yeah, right. And then you recognize things. You're like, oh, yeah, that's great. All right. Well, talk to your mom or dad about that. All right. Thanks. Well, you be brilliant today, okay? Thank you so much. You too. Such a pleasure. Bye-bye.